Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 179. Buddha's light shines on all beings. In the rundown hall of the exorcism department, little Li Jinglong knelt in front of that portrait, holding onto little Hung Jun with one hand. "I cannot lose Shuang," little Li Jinglong said. "I beg of you, please take back all that has already been set in stone. You will become the inheritor of the 6 artifacts, Akalanatha said solemnly. You shall obtain the 6 artifacts and purge Mara. This is your destiny. There was originally another road I could take, little Li Jinglong replied earnestly. As he knelt in front of Akala, his body slowly started to grow, and he said intently, "I am willing, with the power of the heart lamp, to reforge his 307 po. You cannot have the heart lamp and also inherit my power," Akalanatha intoned. "Divine power repels itself. Dipankara's power and mine cannot coexist within your body." "They can," Li Jinglong said intently. "Every one of us that gathers here in the future." "What are you talking about?" Little Hung Jun was a little afraid, and he was about to shake Li Jinglong's hand off, but Li Jinglong grabbed his hand tightly and didn't let go. In that instant, the things surrounding them began to move swiftly. Little Li Jinglong set down an array in the courtyard, and night and day swiftly replaced each other. Under the blazing afternoon sun, little Li Jinglong led little Hung Jun into this array. Golden flames burned him, and blood seeped forth from all over his body. The chase over the snowy fields of Dunhuang, the instant that Li Jinglong obtained the Yao binding rope in the dragon subduing tower, the moon eclipse bow returning to their hands on that lone Shiwei peak, the rebels surrounding the city during the Ungshi disturbances. Hung Jun sank into the darkness, black flames burning forth from his body. A phoenix landed, and Li Jinglong drew the moon eclipse bow. A beam of golden light split the darkness. Little Hung Jun watched this all with horror, before he began to cry out loudly. Li Jinglong, however, pulled his skinny, small frame into his arms, turning his head up to await Akalanatha's response. "Since you wish to make a change," Akalanatha said, "your future will be filled with twists and turns, hardship and suffering." "I don't care," Li Jinglong replied. "You may not succeed," Akalanatha said. "If you fail, then the vast lands of the Central Plains and all the living beings in it will turn to ash. How will you live with yourself then?" "Li Jinglong, I shall." "Then just kill me," little Hung Jun suddenly said from his place in Li Jinglong's embrace. "Li Jinglong." Li Jinglong looked down at little Hung Jun, who turned his head and stroked Li Jinglong's face. He seemed to have understood that the person in front of him, like his father and mother, was doing his best to find a way to save him. "Those that have passed away cannot live again," Akalanatha said heavily. "Even if you change the past, those that are already dead have no way to return to his side." Li Jinglong said dejectedly, "So, that's how it must be." "But from the moment you open your eyes," Akalanatha said, "everything will change as a result. I shall also return to an even more distant past, to rearrange how the 6 artifacts will appear to you." Li Jinglong instantly felt thunderstruck, and he said in a shaky voice, "Thank you. I have also long since grown tired of these cycles filled with fruitless pursuit." Akalanatha walked out of the portrait, standing in front of little Hung Jun and Li Jinglong. He was clad from head to toe in golden armor, and he slowly knelt, reaching out a hand clad in a gauntlet, gently holding it out in front of little Hung Jun. Little Hung Jun. For some reason, the Hung Jun of this moment felt that this golden-clad war god appearing in front of him seemed to be as familiar as someone he had met a long, long time ago. "What has passed shall eventually come to pass," Akalanatha said. "The new Mahamayuri and the new Akalanatha will leave behind their individual destinies." And before his words finished echoing, Akalanatha turned into glowing motes of dust that vanished into the air. The western and southern gates of Chang'an were completely engulfed in battle. In the dark night, billows of devil clouds rolled into the city. Qiu Yangxi directed the Qiao, bringing Hung Jun and Yu Zayun's Yao Hun along as they flew towards Chang'an. Xiaoyu ordered me to steal Yang Taijin's body, Yu Zeyun said, recollecting. That was so I could help him become a devil. Big sister promised him that. I was unwilling, but I had no other choice. Qiu Yangxi said, with your identity as a fox Yao, you actually chose not to work with Xiaoyu. Why does that make me think that there are quite a few things hidden inside this? Or could we say, this is some other trick within the trick? Yu Zeyun chuckled coldly. Dragon subduing immortal, though you were born to be the protector of the dragon subduing tower, you are, in the end, a mortal. There are too many things that you do not understand. Let me give you some advice, you should hold those things you do not understand in fear and reverence. Why's that? Hung Jun could clearly sense that Yu Zeyun didn't really like humans. Her attitude was very similar to Wu Qiu's. The sisters were both formidable characters. When Hung Jun asked that question, Yu Zeyun grew a lot gentler, and she replied, how can the Ziwei star of the human realm allow itself to be toyed with by Yaoguai? Snatching Yang Yahuan's body and mixing yin and yang with Li Longji meant that my Yao power would suffer, and I would lose a large amount of my cultivation. In the end, I could even end up sinking into a state where I would be eternally doomed. Hung Jun. Yu Zeyun continued quietly, your father knew of this information long ago, so with the pentacolor sacred light, he forcibly sealed me into Yang Yahuan's 307 po. That seal lasted for a whole 20 years. Qiu Yangxi and Hung Jun knew that there was an inside story here, and Hung Jun originally thought that since his group had gotten rid of Wu Qiu, Yu Zeyun would try to get her revenge. He hadn't expected that she wouldn't bring up those matters of the past at all. Then, after this, Hung Jun ventured. Mahamayuri, Yu Zeyun said. Long ago, your father and I agreed that this matter would eventually be resolved upon the death of Yang Yahuan's body. At that time, Xiaoyu and I, as well as that older sister of mine, Wu Qiu, would no longer have any connection between us. If you are unwilling to give up on that, I can act as a substitute protector for you. When Hung Jun heard those words, he was immediately stunned, and he asked, can you use spells? I cannot, Yu Zeyun replied. I only have my souls, I have no physical body. I must obtain a body first and cultivate again from the beginning. Qiu Yangxi, then that's still useless, and here I was thinking. Before he finished, a bloody beam shot through the air and Yu Zeyun shouted, watch out. Qiu Yangxi and Hung Jun had been ambushed, and they didn't have the time to put up their guards. The lightning jiao exploded in the air and turned into a cloud of blood. The two of them, at this point, were already in the air above Chang'an, so they instantly started to plummet down towards the city center. Qiu Yangxi made his landscape brush appear out of nowhere, but the blood fog came rolling wildly in and surrounded them in the blink of an eye. The black cloud seeped over the city walls. They had already corrupted a good portion of Chang'an city. And Lushan's hoarse voice roared, devil seed, I've found it, hand him over to me. Hung Jun. Qiu Yangxi bellowed. He readied the landscape brush, and in the darkness, pulled it through the air in a single stroke. Their surroundings immediately became a scroll, which was instantly dyed pitch black, as if it was a piece of paper stained black with ink. Qiu Yangxi kept plummeting downwards, only for a blood-colored Yaoguai to suddenly break through the darkness and say intently, I've caught you now. Qiu Yangxi summoned another jiao, which instantly lit up the darkness with 1,000 beams of lightning. They lit up the fog, and Qiu Yangxi shouted, go save Hung Jun. Hung Jun hovered in the air. The devil chi all around him kept gathering around his body, and in the darkness, the devil chi seemed to form the shape of tentacles, which stabbed themselves firmly into his body, right into his heart. His entire body went icy cold, but his heart seemed as if it would be torn out of his chest by that devil chi as it pulled his heart towards that boundless darkness. Hung Jun. Hung Jun did his best to send out the pentacolor sacred light, but that light had no way to fend off the formless devil chi. The icy feeling kept creeping further down, into his forelimbs and his very bones. His 307 po separated out of his body, and they brought the devil seed along with them as it was dragged into that eternal abyss of darkness. But right then, in the blink of an eye, another powerful force appeared with a wing. The Yao binding rope wrapped around his 307 po, and with a flash of golden light, forcibly pulled his Hunpo back. The two forces opposed each other within the darkness, only to come to a stalemate. Qiu Yangxi sent out the lightning Qiao, which flew towards Hung Jun in the distance. His entire body, however, was subject to the blood mist that enveloped him. "What a handsome little fellow," the blood Yao, Liang Danhuo's voice, laughed mockingly. The blood seeped instantly into his lungs, and Qiu Yangxi felt terrible pain all throughout his body. He circulated his Genkai to fight back against her, but if he put all his attention into that, the spell that he had used to summon the lightning Jiao would instantly fade. He, Qiu Yangxi said with great difficulty, fresh blood pouring out of his nose and mouth. "I do not wish to whisper sweet nothings to you, Yaoguai." "How disgusting!" Liang Danhuo's shriek was piercing, and she transformed into a blood fog that immediately scattered. Qiu Yangxi's lungs were instantly subjected to great injury, and fresh blood spurted out of his mouth. In the darkness, just as Hung Jun felt two forces fighting wildly over his own consciousness, to the point where it felt as if he would be torn in two, a jiao crackling with lightning came whooshing by, crashing strongly into him. It then opened its mouth and picked him up, rushing out of the black clouds. The pressure immediately lessened, and as Hung Jun's Hunpo returned to their spot, he shouted, "Yangxi!" In the next moment, Hung Jun sent out the Yao binding rope, which vanished alongside the lighting Jiao into the endless darkness. The Yao binding rope immediately wrapped around Qiu Yangxi and dragged him out. The blood Yao let out a strange cry as she retreated into the black swirl of devil qi. Hung Jun caught Qiu Yangxi, and the lighting Jiao came charging over, flying far away with the two of them. But halfway there, Qiu Yangxi's magic was also depleted, and the lighting Jiao crackled with lightning as it crashed into a residence, collapsing the roof and the walls. Hung Jun held Qiu Yangxi and let out a great shout of anxiety. All sound in the world seemed to fade away as Qiu Yangxi lay in Hung Jun's arms, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Hung Jun. That scene made Hung Jun feel as if he had been struck by lightning. A long time ago, he had seen this happen as clear as day in the Kun god's predictions. Qiu Yangxi trembled and coughed, before grabbing Hung Jun's hand tightly. In the distance, Lushan let out a wanton burst of wild laughter. "You have no more chances left. Where can you still flee to now?" Mo Rijin stood tall atop the tip of the Dian Pagoda. Ashinakayang stood at the top of the Shiming Temple in Chang'an. Atai stood in front of the Xin Shan Temple. Lu Su stood atop of the Xin Qing Palace. All of them were facing the black clouds that kept sweeping into the city. The black clouds brought billows of devil qi with them, and they had completely blanketed the entirety of Chang'an. Only the Dian Pagoda, the Shiming Temple, the Xin Shan Temple, and the Xin Qing Palace stood, like lone islands amidst this vast sea of dark waves. Mo Rijin's fingers were pressed to his forehead in a sword fingers pose, and he was reciting a spell. Though Chang'an has no power of the earth veins to draw on, Qiu Yangxi's voice resounded within the hearts of each member present. It does have the might of Buddha. If we call upon the might of the Zantan Gonged Buddha, and use the relics of the various abbots as a support to delay Mara for some time. Rise! Mo Rijin shouted. The Dian Pagoda immediately began to glow with a golden light. Soon after, the Shiming Temple and the Xin Shan Temple also glowed with that same Buddha light, which lit up the horizon. Wave after wave of the golden light rippled outwards, preventing the waves of devil qi that tried to sweep over it like the tide. Kong Hung Jun. Go! Yu Zayun shouted at Hung Jun, flying down. Hung Jun slung Qiu Yangxi over his back and staggered through the main street. The devil qi was still closing in on him from behind, bringing devil soldiers with it, which instantly flooded the main street. With that, Hung Jun dashed up the stairs in front of Xin Qing Palace, and with several steps, charged into the hall. Another one has been heavily injured. Yang Qiuzhong had evidently freed himself from his bonds, because the sigils around him had vanished. He stood at the front of the hall, facing Hung Jun. The Carpio was very nervous, and it held 2 chopsticks in its hands, which it was swinging around as it stood guard in front of Li Jinglong. Hung Jun stopped and set Chu Yangxi down. You. Yang Qiuzhong smiled. The restrictions on me were placed by the dragon subduing saint. Now that he has been heavily wounded, his magic has weakened, so I am naturally able to escape. Is this much of a surprise? You are not a smart child. Yu Zeyun landed on the ground. She stood in the middle of the hall and looked towards Yang Qiuzhong. You have finally managed to get out? Yang Qiuzhong asked coldly. Yu Zeyun replied darkly, Xiaoyu, are you still having that impossible dream of turning into a dragon? Yang Qiuzhong chuckled coldly. My eternal legend is already close at hand. But in that moment, the exorcists guarding the Xinshan temple, the Dian pagoda, and the Shiming temple shouted at the same time, Go! At the very moment that the wave of devil qi was about to engulf the edges of the Xinqing palace, 3 beams of Buddha light shot from the 3 great Buddhist temples towards the center of Xinqing palace, where they were absorbed into Lu Su's body. My Buddha is merciful, Lu Su's voice thundered through the darkness. His magnificent antlers, after being bathed in golden light, grew forth and expanded outwards. Lu Su was clad in a kaseya, with half his chest was bared. The golden red kaseya drifted in the wind, and when he opened his eyes, a huge wheel of light appeared. The dear King Jaitaka. The light of Buddha spread, rising towards the wave of devil qi that rose to meet it. It instantly stopped the forward advance of Mara's energy, stopping it forcefully outside Xinqing Palace. Amidst the black sea of Chang'an, 3 lone islands glowed with the light of Buddha, which flowed into the Xinqing Palace located at the center of the 3 of them. On the roof of the palace, the image of Buddha appeared, showing compassion for all living beings, and ripple after ripple of golden light swept out and attacked the great sea of devil qi. Jinglong. He is destined to lose. En Lushan's power far exceeds that which you, I, or Yuan Kun believed, Yang Qiuzhong said slowly. Accept reality, Hung Jun. You still have a chance at survival. Another wave of devil qi burst forth, and Wu Qiu, Fei Ao, the plague god, and the snow woman, all of the Yao souls that had been revived by the devil qi appeared in the hall. Leaving me here alone was the greatest mistake that you committed, Yang Qiuzhong said darkly. You should admit defeat, Hung Jun. A huge monster appeared behind Yang Qiuzhong, that was the dream taper that had absorbed the 3,000 nightmares of the world. It's you. Hung Jun was stunned. What did you see? The Kun god's voice suddenly sounded in Hung Jun's ear. Every scene that you see of the future are all from the completely new future that Li Jinglong has created using his power. If you saw Chu Yangxi heavily wounded, that proves that Xiaoyu will escape his bonds in the end. In the starry night above, the silver river flowed like a waterfall. Hung Jun lay on the huge Kun's back, sunk into a deep sleep. Li Jinglong looked out towards the vast sea of clouds, his hair drifting in the wind. He had the sword of wisdom on his back, and he looked like a lonely wandering swordsman. Everything is born from the span of a single wish, and it can all vanish for the sake of a single wish as well, Yuan Kun said solemnly, appearing as a glowing form that stood behind him. You have already changed the fate of everyone. Yours, Hung Jun's, and even those of the people who have walked alongside you on this path. Li Jinglong replied solemnly, I need you to help me, Kun God. Giving the heart lamp to me was your arrangement, and I trust you have already made the preparations. Make a plan and lure Xiaoyu in, so that we can use the conflict between him and En Lushan over the devil seed. As soon as Xiaoyu transforms into a dragon, Yuan Kun replied mildly, he will be very difficult to control. Li Jinglong turned back and studied Yuan Kun, replying, I shall set down a seal in Hung Jun's heart meridian. You failed, Yuan Kun said. You have indeed tried, but in the end, when the heart lamp vanishes, this seal will also vanish alongside it. Li Jinglong replied, I will find it again. Yuan Kun said, the heart lamp, in the end, should not have ended up with you. Forcibly letting you inherit it already goes against fate. What you should have inherited was the true power of Akalanatha. But Li Jinglong said, I will not use the 6 artifacts to kill Hung Jun when he transforms into a devil. Let Xiaoyu and Lushan properly face down each other, and let them fight over the devil seed in Hung Jun's body. The moment the devil seed leaves his body, it will be very difficult, Yuan Kun replied intently. To tell you the truth, I have also been waiting for this opportunity all this time. Li Jinglong said, the opportunity will always come. End chapter. Tianbao Fu Yao Lu. Chapter 180. Mara descends to earth. Above the main hall of Xinqing Palace, Yang Quozhong lifted a hand, studying Hung Jun. The dream taper behind him let out roars of pain as the devil qi all over its body exploded outwards and surged towards Yang Quozhong. Hung Jun retreated back until he was standing just in front of Li Jinglong, his back to him. He reached a hand back and pressed it against the bed, tightly grasping Li Jinglong's hand. Chen Fen woke, and he opened his eyes. He rubbed them disbelievingly before saying, wow. Hung Jun stood protectively in front of the two of them, panting for breath. He did not use the devil seed to lure away the dream taper that Yang Quozhong had absorbed. Instead, he simply watched this play out quietly. Finally, Yang Quozhong stole back the power of the dream taper, and his robes billowed in the wind brought about by the devil qi. He had evidently become the second Mara after Lushan. Come with me, Yang Quozhong said. The time has come, and this is your best chance. Yang Quozhong had drawn out all of the dream taper's nightmares, and it let out a pained cry as it collapsed to the ground, slowly turning into polluted water. Xiaoyu. I see you. Lushan's voice thundered across the entirety of Chang'an, and the devil qi that filled the sky gathered up along the central axis of Chang'an. He had actually called his devil qi back in order to form it into a hideous, huge, easily 3 jong high Mara, whose lower body dragged along the ground. He bellowed, Xiaoyu. Spit out the 3,000 nightmares of the world. This Mara's head was a grayish-white, and it was as huge as a house. Its eyes were still empty pools of pitch-black darkness, and when it opened its mouth, it instantly spat out countless corpses, forests of white bone, and rotted chunks of blood and flesh, all formed from the prey it had consumed. It instantly turned Chang'an into a city filled with mountains of corpses and pools of blood. Motherfucker, Atai said, the corners of his lips twitching. This guy is really too ugly. When the gods first created the world, how did they end up creating such a disgusting thing? The black clouds parted, and Mara lifted up 3 tentacles made up of black qi, pointing them at the 3 locations in the city. The devil troops then dispersed, charging towards the Dian Pagoda, the Xinshan Temple, and the Ximing Temple, beginning to attack the structures glowing with the Buddha light array. Hundreds of thousands of devil soldiers came surging in, destroying all the structures in their path. It was Ashinakayan who first shouted, I can't hold out any further. He then leapt off the roof of the hall, and the devil soldiers, surging like the tide behind him, collapsed the temple. Look at your companions, Yang Quozhong said, turning to Hung Jun, my disciple. I am not your disciple. Hung Jun rippled. You and I were originally destined to be master and disciple, Yang Quozhong said. But others meddled and forcibly cut that fate loose. Why don't you guess who that was, the person who cut your string of fate? Li Jinglong's eyes were shut, and he lay as he always had on the bed, as if he was sunk in a very deep dream. Yang Quozhong continued darkly, the reason you came into this world was to bear the suffering of all living beings. Yet one selfish person, for his own selfish desires, used forbidden magic to change your past. Becoming Mara and being exorcised by Akalanatha is supposed to be your ultimate destiny. Why is that? Chen Feng asked curiously. The Carpio could not stop trembling, but it peeped its head out from behind Hung Jun. Behind his back, Hung Jun lifted a hand and waved it slightly. Yang Kuozhong then turned towards the main hall and looked out into the distance. At this time, Mara had grown larger and larger, and it was striding through the mountains of corpses and seas of blood towards the main hall of Xinqing Palace. At this moment, there's no one, no matter who, can stop it anymore. The grey wolf sped swiftly along the rooftops. Devil soldiers surged up from all sides to charge at it, cornering it in the northwestern corner of the city. Ashinakayan had thrown all of his throwing knives, and he stood on a rooftop. Around him, devil soldiers surged towards him like a tidal wave. Wild winds and blazing flames swirled around Atai. His left hand pressed down on the ring of sacred flame on his right hand, and his entire body began to blaze with fire. With a somersault, Lu Su leapt off the roof of Xinqing Palace, moving to the drill grounds in front of the main hall to shield it. Mara immediately rose from the ground and let out a horrifying bellow at Lu Su. Yang Kuozhong's gaze was turned towards the distance. In the dark night, all the houses in Chang'an were collapsing in waves. That was the sound of the devil troops running amok in the city itself. Hung Jun stood in front of the emperor's bed, and he sucked in a deep breath. It was at that very moment that behind Yang Kuozhong's back, in front of Hung Jun, Yuan Kun's silhouette suddenly appeared. Yuan Kun still had that black cloth over his eyes, and he lifted his index finger to his lips, indicating that he should stay quiet. Go, Yuan Kun's voice sounded in Hung Jun's ear. Guard your innermost heart. What shall come will arrive very soon. And with that, Yuan Kun unfurled his fingers and pressed them gently to Hung Jun's forehead. His entire body turned into motes of glowing dust that then scattered on the wind. It was at that very moment that Yang Kuozhong turned and looked towards Hung Jun, his eyes filled with pity. I shall take your place and become a devil, Yang Kuozhong said slowly. I shall then die to the power of Akalanatha. This is the only thing that this master can give you. You won't die, Hung Jun replied darkly. You have such powerful ambition that if we were to let you become a devil, I don't think even Li Jinglong would be able to handle you. You have no other choice. Yang Kuozhong's lips quirked up in a slight, strange smile. As of now, you cannot hope to match up against me anymore. Correct, Hung Jun replied coldly. Then what are you still wasting breath for? Li Jinglong's breathing gradually quickened, and his chest rose and fell. I will be leaving tomorrow. Little Hung Jun and little Li Jinglong sat side by side on the swing. Little Li Jinglong replied quietly, we will see each other again. Little Hung Jun's eyes were red and he said quietly, we may not. We will, little Li Jinglong whispered. Promise me so, and I will also promise you the same. The protective wall surrounding the Xinqing Palace collapsed under the onslaught of the devil troops, and they came surging in, charging into the drill grounds in front of the palace. Mara roared once more, and all of the black chi gathered up and turned into a pillar of chi, which suddenly burst through into the main hall. The swirling vortex of chi roared into the hall like a hurricane, and in the next moment, the entirety of Xinqing Palace started to crumble, and it exploded. Bricks and chunks of wood shot in all directions. Hung Jun was clad in all black, and amidst the wild winds, he appeared. Around him fluttered a jiao formed from black flames. Arrogant trash, the black jiao, xiaoyu, that was circling around Hung Jun opened its mouth and roared. Mara's tentacles rose into the air, swooping in towards Hung Jun, who had the black jiao revolving around him. Hung Jun's left hand was clasped in a sword fingers stance, and he drew a circle in the air with his index and middle fingers. The pentacolor sacred light shot into the sky, but it brought with it a tinge of evil energy. It transformed into a peacock tail plume, and it appeared behind him like a ring of light. Divine and devilish light shot in all directions, before he then struck forth with his right palm, stopping the roiling black chi that came surging forth from Mara. More and more tentacles that Mara had created appeared, coiling around Hung Jun and forming a ball. The devil seed in Hung Jun's chest was like the eye of the storm as it began to furiously absorb the power of Mara. For a time, both sides found themselves at a stalemate. The devil troops throughout Chang'an, however, all gave up on the exorcists and came pouring in towards the Xinqing palace. In the main hall, Qing Xiang, Yuan Kun, and Yu Zeyun stood in front of the bed. Li Jinglong was still fast asleep. "Why has the fourth member not yet come?" Yuan Kun asked solemnly. "Ah!" Hung Jun bellowed angrily into the darkness. The exorcists dashed towards the Xinqing palace, only for that whirlwind of devil chi to sweep them away. Xia Yu shouted, "Hold steady!" A Tai fell to the ground, and Liang Danhuo appeared in front of him. Her hideous features had already started to twist, and she chuckled coldly. "It's your turn now." In that moment, Mara transformed into devil clouds that enveloped Hung Jun. The 100,000 devil soldiers surrounded him, charging forward and pouncing on him, trying to pull him down to the ground. Xia Yu let out a long screech as he circled Hung Jun, fending off countless devil soldiers. Hung Jun lifted a hand to fight back against Mara. The devil seed began to wildly take back all of the devil chi that An Lushan had absorbed on his way here, and in the blink of an eye, the devil chi around Hung Jun grew stronger and stronger. His long hair began to burn, turning into pitch black short hair, and his skin turned snowy white. This was what the Devil Lord was originally supposed to look like. Hung Jun was still in the midst of that devil chi. Upon seeing that the scales of power were about to tip the other way, Mara, still roaring, was on the verge of losing control, so it reached out a tentacle and snagged Liang Danhuo. Liang Danhuo had not yet started to fight against A Tai, and she had no chance to dodge as the tentacle coiled around her and dragged her towards Mara. There was then a shrill, bone-chilling wail as Mara stuffed her into its mouth and crunched down ferociously, splattering blood all over the ground. The devil chi flickered, and Mara once again grew powerful. It coiled around the devil seed in Hung Jun's chest and began to pull at it fiercely. Xia Yu let out a roar as it charged towards Mara, biting down on Mara's head. Mara let out a piercing shout at that, and Hung Jun took this opportunity to put his hands together. In response, the devil seed began to spin very rapidly, forming the eye of a tornado, pulling in all the black clouds that were filling the air. Mara bellowed, give it to me, and you shall be freed." Xia Yu's voice sounded in Hung Jun's heart. "Right now." Hung Jun opened his eyes, and the devil chi rose again into the air. The power needed to pull the devil seed back to himself had almost caused him to lose his sense of self and forget everything. All that existed in the depths of his heart was an endless, boundless sense of desire, like that of an eternally hungry beast roaring at Mara. His short hair began to drift in the air like flames, and his physical body began to scatter. What replaced it was a body of black flames, the embodiment of dense devil chi. And in the depths of his heart, what came swelling over him in a warm tide was a death filled with tranquility. The black clouds that filled the sky were pulled towards his chest, and as the black clouds disappeared, Chang'an, which had been darkened by those clouds, revealed its glittering, brilliant golden edges. "I shall die." Hung Jun felt endless pain and sorrow engulf his soul. It was currently devouring everything happy and good in his life, and what replaced it was a sense of calm towards the endless darkness. He originally thought that turning into a devil would bring him sorrow, horror, and unwillingness, but none of that had come to pass. It was as if he had turned into a divinity, and was thus not subject to the laws of nature. With a divinity that saw all living beings as disposable, it looked out over all living things and felt neither joy nor sorrow. All it had was the desire to completely cleanse this entire world, to wipe away all that was ugly and evil in order to begin anew. Mara had already begun to descend, but the devil chi kept endlessly being absorbed into Hung Jun's body, and its body made of rotten flesh swiftly began to collapse. In this moment, Hung Jun obtained all of the memories that truly belonged to Mara, which spanned millennia. Mahamayuri, clad in the beautiful wash of the pentacolor sacred light, trailed its tail feathers behind it as it came flying towards them from the horizon. Akalanatha, glowing all over with golden light, raced after him. The image of Mahamayuri suddenly flew high into the sky, towards the horizon, and it began to fight against that giant clad in golden armor. This is my destiny. All of this has not yet reached its end. The day that Mara is born is the day that the divine land will return to nothingness. As long as the cycles of rebirth are still present, Akalanatha's voice thundered through the air, then the living beings of this divine land still have a chance at life. Memories came crashing in waves into his mind, and he began to understand, through Mara's eyes, how the living beings of the divine land were. This was not refinement, nor was it salvation, this was destruction. Mara would be reincarnated every 1,000 years, for the sake of gathering the devil chi and forming it into a seed. The divine land too, would suffer through a tribulation that happened once every 1,000 years. If the humans still had hope, Akalanatha would destroy the devil seed and scatter the devil chi throughout the world, before then going back to slumber for another 1,000 years. If there was no more hope left in the world, Mara's power would flourish, and what would come would be the destruction of thousands of beings in the divine land. The three worlds would be wiped away, awaiting the next great round of creation. If there is life, then there is death, Mara intoned, opening its eyes, which glimmered with the light of 1,000 stars. Mediocre and numerous, living beings are like ants. How much purpose is there in all of this? He reached out a hand, and with a single flick, a beam of black light shot towards An Lushan. The other Mara immediately scattered, turning into ash that scattered on the wind. Mara has descended to this earth, Xiaoyu intoned, turning and flying towards Mara. Allow me to lend you a hand. Mara's robes fluttered in the wild wind. Xiaoyu flew towards Mara, but the devil chi shot forth and caught it in its grasp. Promise me that, and I will also promise you, little Li Jinglong said to little Hung Jun as they sat on the swing. Will you come find me or should I come find you? Little Hung Jun looked down at little Li Jinglong's hand. He took his hand and swung their joined hands slightly. Come find me first, little Li Jinglong whispered into his ear. Then I will go find you. Shuing. We're leaving. Jia Yu's voice sounded from next door. Tears swam in little Hung Jun's eyes. Little Li Jinglong held his hand and led him out the door, saying quietly, you have to listen to your mom and dad. What about your artifact? Little Hung Jun asked. It will come back. Little Li Jinglong pulled little Hung Jun into his arms and bent down to press a kiss to his forehead. Little Hung Jun, however, looped his arms around his neck and kissed him on the lips. Little Li Jinglong. Little Hung Jun smiled. My mom often kisses my dad like that. I'm leaving, okay. Little Hung Jun climbed into the carriage, and the carriage set off. Li Jinglong, his hair loose and in disarray, stood at the end of the little alleyway, numbly watching Hung Jun leave. His surroundings immediately darkened, and a bolt of lightning flashed past. A torrential rain began to fall, and Li Jinglong found that he was clad in a set of black armor. Someone charged towards him and Li Jinglong shouted, Who's there? Subconsciously, Li Jinglong lifted a hand, raising his sword to parry. The lightning lit up both their faces. Hung Jun's hair was soaked and plastered to his forehead, and in that instant, the pendant around his neck swung into the air. Li Jinglong couldn't dodge in time, and both of their eyes widened. The heart lamp collided with the tip of the sword of wisdom, and it immediately shattered, sending up a bright, flashing beam of light. Li Jinglong suddenly opened his eyes. Hung Jun, Li Jinglong said, his voice shaky. As soon as Li Jinglong opened his eyes, Qing Xiang, who had been standing guard in front of the bed, let out a whistle. The golden-winged great Peng and the huge Kun flew out of the hall at the same time, both of them casting spells, which circled around Mara, attacking it. Handsome Mara's eyes remained cold, however. It simply lifted a hand, and the black chi billowed towards the two Yao kings, forcing them apart. Then came the sound of the earth thundering in the distance. "Charge!" the king of the corpse ghosts that fell in battle shouted. A swarm of Huashi filled the air as they charged towards Chang'an, and in that moment, the city walls collapsed. The corpse ghost army attacked the entire city, charging towards the devil troops that were scattering in all directions, trampling over them. In the air and on the ground, all of the Yaoguai were attacking Mara. Mara opened its mouth, but it spoke with Xiaoyu's voice. The Yao tribes have forgotten themselves in their arrogance. This is truly the pinnacle of foolishness. Force Xiaoyu out. The golden-winged Great Peng's voice resounded through the air. What should we do about Hung Jun? Mo Rijin roared angrily. No need to mind him, the Khan god's voice said. The tens of thousands of corpse ghosts that fell in battle charged forth, scattering the devil soldiers. The corpse ghost king vaulted up onto the Khan god's back and charged towards Hung Jun. The exorcists had no choice but to grit their teeth, and they each cast their spells, aiming them towards Hung Jun. The might of Mara was at its peak, and suddenly, the world went dark. Prepare to welcome destruction, Mara said coldly in Xiaoyu's voice. Hung Jun, Li Jinglong rolled off the bed, trembling as he did so. Light shone out from where his heart was, and the light of the heart lamp illuminated the dark Xinqing palace. End chapter.